Hi there, Nick with Inverse Training Solutions, and today we're going to be covering the FATS 300 LE. The FATS 300 LE consists of 5 16:9 borderless screens, each having an ultra short throw projector and operated off of a single user PC. One of the great things about ultra short throw projectors that we're able to do is have the trainee get as close to that screen as they can without casting their shadow, which is great when using situational awareness inside of any given scenario.
Now we're going to get into the use of force side of it, right? We're going to present you with multiple videos via use of force application that allows you to go through your communication, your de-escalation training, and then overall your judgment on use of less lethal and or lethal force. As we go through it, the system is designed and has a ton of libraries as far as lessons learned from past experiences that are videos that we've recreated onto the system, like we're going to play one here in a second, from officer involved to active shooters to demented persons, to allow the full spectrum of those calls that you would get out on 911 issues out there on the street. So now we're going to be going over the use of force application or your de-escalation scenarios. As you can see here, we're going into a scenario with an armed suspect in a domestic violence issue. We're going to show you how the officers can communicate, try to de-escalate, and then if there's a reason to use lethal or less lethal force, we'll run those options. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and start one.
You are responding to a frantic 911 call about a man assaulting a woman with a hammer.
What's going on? Where's he at, man? Sir, come here for a second. Let me talk to you. Hey, what's in your hand? Come here. Let me talk to you. Hey, drop the hammer. Drop it. Hey, radio, start me some more units. I got a man armed with seems to be a hammer. He's going to be wearing blue jeans, white t-shirt, be a middle-aged white male. Hey, bud.
Swear to God, if you don't leave, I'm gonna kill you.
Drop it. Just drop the hammer for me. Listen, drop the kid. I understand that, my man. Just drop the hammer, please. Please drop the hammer. We can talk about this. Put it down. Put it down. Please. You don't have to hurt him, my man. Just put the kid down. Put him down. Radio, be advised, shots fired. Suspect is down. Please start me an ambulance. So after the scenario ends, the system also has a data library where it can store the student's information, whether using his name, rank, or ID number, and it'll save all the data within that system as far as what he's trained on and how his outcomes were. So in marksmanship, it'll track all the courses of fire that he ran and all his scores towards the end of it, and you can go back and look at it by time and date. Same thing with use of force. You can choose to save or not save at the end of that scenario, and it'll save it under that student's name, rank, or ID. If not, you just don't save it and you can continue forward with the next scenario. So quick overview. Again, the instructor has multiple branches that he can choose throughout the scenario. He can choose for the suspect to take a kid hostage. He can choose for him to run around the corner and be alone. Once the officer rounds that corner, then the instructor again has control of what happens, whether the suspect complies and puts the hammer down, or whether he continues to argue with me verbally, or third, he actually turns around and starts beating this kid with a hammer. And again, from a law enforcement's perspective, I have to sit here and figure out and communicate and try to peacefully resolve the situation. Now, if it turns into a higher situation, more or less, then I have to take matters into my own hands and I have to deem what type of use of force I'm gonna use, whether it's lethal or less lethal, in order to save this kid's life. So we're gonna watch the replay. During the replay, you're gonna get multiple things. Again, the angle, you're gonna get a trace. So if at any point in time, I pull out a pistol, a taser, a OC spray, it'll bring the trace as to where I was aiming throughout the entire scenario where I had that weapon up. Go ahead.
You are responding to a frantic 911 call about a man assaulting a woman with a hammer.
I think he's gonna kill someone. There's kids in there.
As you can start seeing my trace on the lower left side of the screen.
Come on. I swear to God, if you don't leave, I'm gonna kill this kid. I'll bash his brains out. Go. This does not concern you. This is a family man. It's my kid. Go.
When and if I fire, you will see the shot placement and you will see a color code. Red is a lethal hit, green is a miss, and yellow would be a less lethal hit on the body. One of the things to note is the strength and power of that round, right? So if I were to fire, all those shots went to the upper torso of that suspect and took him down. If I were to fire a little bit lower on the torso around his center mass, the system will register that as a not only lethal hit on the suspect, but it'll also register it as an innocent hit on the child, because obviously rounds can go through the body. As an officer, we need to be cognizant of where that round can end up. Obviously know your target and what lies beyond. So that is a lesson learned from this situation, that if you fire and hit center mass, it can go through and potentially hit that student. Therefore, it's a training feature, right? If I, as an officer or a training officer, my student runs through this and gets it wrong, great. I want him to get it wrong here so that when he actually does it again, he gets it right, or when he gets out there in the real world, he doesn't make the same mistake. Therefore, we see shots all to the top of the body, suspect down, we're good to go. We can continue moving forward as far as radio calls, calling for emergency assistance, and so on and so forth. We can debrief it, watch the replay, watch the shot placement, move on to the next scenario. If the child wasn't there in this case, I had the option to actually switch from lethal to less lethal if I had either a partner or felt comfortable that I had enough distance and or time to actually deploy the taser. You can deploy the taser and also take that suspect down. So it's not always a shoot, don't shoot scenario. It's a what if and what should I use as far as use of force, whether it's lethal or less lethal. The instructor has the ability to de-escalate or escalate the scenario or the suspect actions as he's going through it. This will allow that officer to keep and continue engaging verbally and or force that student to use a lethal or less lethal option to find a peaceful resolve. The marksmanship application in this configuration right here, it's showing us 3 targets, meaning 3 lanes per this screen. We're going to show you a little bit of a demonstration of a 0 course for the rifle. Nick, come on up and shoot a 3-round group. Again, the system is smart. The system knows where the firing line is, and it knows that this is that target, and wherever I place that target, whether it's at 25 meters, 100, 300, 500 meters, it will shrink that target down to the exact same size that it's supposed to be at that distance. And obviously we have the ballistic software also incorporated into it. So it knows that that M4 is a 5.56 millimeter. It knows the trajectory and the ballistics, and it applies them into that virtual world. So it's very realistic when it comes to fit, form, and function, and actual accuracy through the ballistics. The next thing that we're going to show you is a 0 using a simulated pistol. This is the M18 currently used by the US Air Force and certain other units in the Marine Corps and so on and so forth. We also have the M17, which is its full-length version for the simulator. Nick will be showing us a 3-round course of fire. He will actually be using a holographic working optic on there as well. Nick? There you go, 2 rounds, show us his shot placement. The weapon system, again, is smart. It will lock back to the rear, forcing that student to actually do his reload and continue to fire if the course continued that way. This course ended at that round count, so we can actually do a automatic 0 using our software on the system. If you can watch the screen, you will see different colors on here. The green is going to be 5 seconds worth of trace. That is your acquiring the target, aligning your sights, your sight alignment, sight picture, and the student actually honing in onto the target. We can actually play this in real time, or we can actually slow it down. So for this purpose, we're going to slow it down. We're going to press play. You're going to see the student come onto the target. He's going to find his sights. Then he's going to squeeze the trigger. You're going to see a small pink line and then a blue one. I'll go ahead and stop it right there for a second. Again, the green line is 5 seconds worth of trace. If that student's screen is all over, that means he's staring at the target. He's not actually aligning his sights. If he were to using his sight alignment sight picture, it comes in real nice and tight right here. The next thing that you'll see is 0.2 of a second prior to that shot break, that green line turns pink, showing that any movement thereafter was due to his trigger squeeze or anticipation of recoil. He had very minimal. That means he has good discipline in his trigger squeeze and handling of that weapon throughout that shot. After the shot placement, that line is going to turn blue, showing his follow through and or recoil management, which is also very well, stayed right on target, waiting for his follow on shot. If that blue were to come off the paper, or he's sitting there prairie dogging it, meaning he's looking over his sights to look at his shot placement, we can pick that apart as well. Let's look at his last shot. He comes on the paper again. He's dancing around. He's going in a nice tight group. Nice side alignment, side picture we can see there with the green, and nice small and short pink line. Again, showing us good trigger manipulation. If it were bad trigger squeeze, it would be left and or right. If it was a bad anticipation or recoil, that pink line would be straight up and down. Therefore, outlining what that student is doing right and or wrong on the system. The next feature that we're going to show you is a malfunction induced by the instructor. And we're going to watch as a student actually goes through it, and he has to actually function his weapon in order to clear that malfunction and get the weapon back into battery. Nick? Click. As long as that student cycles that weapon, cycles that slide on the pistol, or cycles the bolt on that rifle and puts the weapon back in the battery, thus you can continue firing it. The good way of practicing this is by shooting multiple targets over and over and just continually inducing those malfunctions until the student learns it by muscle memory. That every time he gets that click, it's obviously a failure to fire and a malfunction. Go ahead and tap it, rack it, or whatever immediate action that you teach, have him apply it, whether it's remove the magazine, insert a fresh one. He can do so, slide that bolt, continue to fire, it puts the weapon back into battery. A great resource and tool that nobody in the market has. The FATS 100 LE comes with multiple courses of fire included into the system, whether it's law enforcement, state qualifications, and federal qualifications. As far as the marksmanship authoring comes into play, you also have the ability to create your own courses of fire. Each course of fire will run exactly how they do in real life. So whether you start at the 7-yard line, the 15, the 25, it will happen exactly that way, and they can continue to fire, do each magazine reload at each yard line, and continue to practice, thus allowing the students multiple repetitions in a short amount of time. For the speed and continuity of it, we can actually fire 4 times as fast as an event in live fire, meaning we can multiply your efforts that you do live 4 times faster in the virtual environment, thus giving you that round increase, that cost savings, and more repetition for that student equals better training. Nick, we're gonna run a course of fire here for you, which shows you the different capabilities of multiple targets and moving targets. Stand by. So the system, as you can hear the thumps, it actually registers hits on steel. You can hear the ping, hits that are a miss. You actually hear a thump when they actually hit the dirt, identifying whether it actually hits and or misses. Obviously, it's a paper cardboard target. It's gonna go through, you're not gonna hear sound, but it's gonna give you the same audible feedback as it does in real life. This here's an example of the M4A1, which is the new rifle used by the US military, the US Army basically, and the US Air Force. It has the ambidextrous safety selector, and it has the either full auto and or 3-round burst, depending on which one you want. We can actually make that and simulate that in the virtual environment. So the student, again, the same thing he does, load his weapon, make ready. If he were to move that safety selector on fire or on auto, he can actually sit there and shoot in that mode. Therefore, he gets that training of firing in full auto.